Welcome back to the Rugby podcast, hosted by the Rugby Booth. Me, Husey, are back again. Another week down in the Autumn Nation series. Officially week 2, I think it is, because the first week was called week 0. So, look, a lot of good happened over this week for some of our teams, particularly yours, who went back to back and kept the Grand Slam hope alive. My team struggled, the All Blacks, a little bit more, but there was a lot of good rugby that we're going to get through today, and a lot of talking points, which I think were vital in the rugby world to be discussed. So we're going to go and do our best effort at doing those. Let's start though. We're going to review all the games as we did last week, and we're going to predict some games for next week. And there's 4 major games. There was obviously a lot of rugby this week, and we will touch base on kind of a couple of the other ones just to note the results. But the 4 major games we want to run through are the big ones, which is Ireland, Argentina, England, South Africa, France versus All Blacks, and Wales versus Australia. Let's start with the first game of the round, which is on Friday night, my time, probably Saturday morning, your time, which is Ireland versus Argentina. And we discussed it heavily that both of these teams kind of needed a performance. Argentina to kind of back up what they've shown this year, Ireland to get their Autumn Nation series back on track. I think we'll be left wondering for both teams. I think Ireland went in at halftime in a pretty confident lead, thinking you're going to take away the game, and Argentina just hung in there. I think Argentina will be disappointed they didn't get a big scalp. Like, the opportunity was there to take a massive win. And Ireland, again, I think will be happy with a win, but disappointed with their performance in the end.
Yeah, and there was even some controversy about the ending. So I've done a quick bit of research. I haven't been able to watch the game, but it was apparently an invisible knock on at the end here. And from the footage I'm seeing, it's iffy. But I get that's rugby at the end of the day. And look, Ireland put themselves in a position to win. I don't think and the play that was for the knock on was an attempted drop goal as well to tie the game. So look, I don't think Argentina could cry too much foul there. I think they'll be disappointed about their performance at the start of the game going down 22-9. That is a tough pit to climb back out of. Last week we said Argentina is a top rugby nation. It's time that we hold them to the same standards as the other top rugby nations, and I think this is a result you would expect of a top rugby nation playing another top rugby nation in their home ground. But I think Argentina is setting higher standards for themselves than that. They expect to come away with a win. They want to be like an All Blacks, South Africa, and this year the Wallabies, where they're going into these opposition stages, they're traveling to the Northern Hemisphere and getting these big wins. So I think they'll walk away from this one very disappointed. There's not much else to say from my end, really.
Yeah, I watching that last passage of play, it was really interesting as well. So, how Argentina scored most of their tries or points were from breakaways from the backs, having a slick move or a special play. I'm looking at you, Juan Cruz Manila, who scored one of the better tries you'll see from the weekend. And I just went, they got into the 22 of Ireland and they just went shut down. So, like, to run you through the whole story, a minute-ish left to go. They win a penalty on their own 22. They kick to the line at about halfway. Yeah. They build about 10 phases. Eventually do break the line to get down to the 22. As soon as they get into 22, they just go to this forwards pick and go. And I just went, they just seem to shut down. And I don't know, I would love to know the thinking and the questioning behind the reason. And I'm sure it's part of their game plan. Yeah. And hey, this is how they work on it. And this is what they may have identified about Ireland. But to me, that's not the way you beat this Ireland team. It's, you've got to break them down the way they had been, which is through the back lines, a couple hard carries in the middle, attack at the backs. And I just thought, they had such an opportunity right at the end to steal it, and then they just went into the shell, and then eventually what happened was, as you said, a call that could go either way. And I'm like, you just leave yourself up to so much interpretation when you go into those messy rucks and those forward-led rucks. So I went, if I was Argentina and you watch that game back, I think you'll be like, shit, we blew an opportunity for Ireland.
They went away from their identity.
Exactly. And I think that they've been so good, as one of the boys at rugby said, in the rugby championship, their counter-attack was probably the best in the comp. And it wasn't even their counter-attack, it was just what they built off back of phase play when they went those 5-6 phases and then went out to the backs. I just thought, that is who this Argentina team is now. They're slick in the back line. They will meet you up front. They may not dominate you up front, but they'll do enough to set that space open for their attacking players. And they've got some speed and some creativity out there at the moment that is unparalleled in the world, as you said. They're the number 5 team in the world, and that's no easy feat at the moment in the World
Mm,
Rugby stage when you look at the top 4 above them. So, yeah, I think they'll be gutted not to come away with a win. And again, as you said, to hold them to that standard, they should be gutted. That was a winnable
yep.
game for them in Ireland against a team that was number 1 in the world for a very long time, and they blew it, in my opinion. But yeah, let's move on to the English against the South Africans. Now,
Yep.
again, we talked heavily about this. Like, I gave England no chance, and rightfully so, I gave them no chance. But as you said, it was a closer game than I think many
Yep.
expected. England came out with that fighting spirit that they've had, and the Springboks, to their credit, again and again and again and again, will find ways to win and will beat you down physically, mentally,
Mm.
and spiritually to a point where
And
you're holding on.
and they adapt their game plan as well. Like, there's obviously lots of talk about the bomb squad. I even sent you a link this week to a South African ad that featured the bomb squad in there. Like, it's such a part of the South African Springbok identity. But they went away from it this game. They showed their smarts and adaptability. Yeah, watching parts of this game as I was able to, I thought England were very resilient to I thought South Africa won a lot of the contact. A lot of the big hits you saw in this game were South Africa on England. What I thought England did well was they controlled the high ball. Freddie Stewart at the back, particularly, was tremendous under the high ball. Um, and I think similar to Argentina, there'll be a couple of missed opportunities that England will rue in this game. Two of them stick out in my mind. One of them, the aforementioned Stewart, took a great high ball, broke through the South African line. He had a man at his outside. It was a risky pass. Instead, he chips it. The outside man, I believe it was Freeman, nearly got it. But maybe looking back, he might have wanted to go for the pass or look for a dummy or something like that. But they wound up losing possession of the ball there because the kick ended up being knocked on out of bounds. So they walk away even with no points in that situation. So maybe even taking a tackle with some support, building up some phase play there. The other one, England were driving late on the South African line. Um, Marcus Smith is just begging for the ball. It takes a while to get to him, but once he gets it, he passes it out, and then Slade passes it out to the wing, but it's a forward pass. And so England lose out again on points there. So um, what I said last week, as I said, this was a close game, right? 29-20. That's after what South Africa did to Scotland last week. You'd expect a more thorough dismantling of an England side fresh off a loss to the All Blacks and to the Wallabies. But England had that fight, had that resilience in them. Um, One of the main things I took away from this game is Marcus Smith is just developing into perhaps the premier 10 in the world right now. Creativity, directing the side, his own individual running, just an amazing player all round. Someone so necessary for England. Um, but then on the other side, it's South Africa. It's the number 1 team in the world. It's the back-to-back world champs. Uh, when you've got Cheslin Colby, who can do what he does at pace and strength. Uh, it's unfair sometimes. Peter Steph Detroit taking out people's midsections. Just I thought it was a. I watched the Stan minigame and some other highlights. That was it was a really entertaining game. But South Africa thoroughly won the contact in that game, and usually that means that South Africa is going to put up a big scoreline. But England did enough defensively and kept themselves in that game where they were in it, right up to pretty much close to the end.
Yeah, look, and as you said, they stay in it, but it's that question you always kind of get when you play South Africa. It's, how didn't we win that game? Like,
Mm,
again, you mentioned England had their opportunities. They had another opportunity when they were like 5 metres out, went to a line out, not straight, and you just
yeah.
kind of go, there were so many opportunities there, and I still think it was a comfortable enough win for South Africa. Again, the way they play rugby is
Hmm.
just incredible at the moment. And I want to highlight Grant Williams. I think there was been a lot of talk
Yes,
about him
his
off
try
the
was
bench,
amazing.
but his try was amazing. It can show why they can do a 7-1 split when they've got someone like that on the
Mm.
wing who can come on and cover a winging position and halfback position. So look, the skill they have at the moment and the depth they have is there's no comparison to it in World Rugby as
Mm,
you look at it. Like that there was many changes from the last week's team, and they come out and they still win fairly comfortable. To me, I just go, there's not a weakness in the Springboks team. They're still beatable. Again, we said England had their chances, which isn't ever. I don't think that's ever going to be a case when you're going to have a Springboks team that's not beatable. But I don't think you will come away from more games than not with the Springboks team currently and going forward, going they've won again, and that's
mm.
what they'll do. The Springboks team, I think
You have
you
to
won't
be
see them.
you have to be absolutely perfect against them because if you waste any chances, that will be what costs you.
Yeah,
That'll be it. Like you won't get enough other chances. You have to take. They will give you the bare minimum, and you need to make the most of those chances. Otherwise, there's nothing else. You can't. There's just no. There's just too good, and won't give you any other opportunities. So you have to take the ones that you get, and mistakes. Any mistakes against them will cost you. Will cost you the game.
yep. And it did. And as you said, again, an English team probably looking back, going like, "Why? How? What? Where?" And it
Yeah.
went wrong again.
Well, it's a 5-game losing streak for England and 5 out of their last 6.
Mhm.
Pretty pretty rough times in England.
But I guess you
Um,
would, if I
but
was
that's just the
to,
general living circumstances there anyway. So
if I was to hazard a guess as well, the assumption would be none of those losses are by more than like 10 points. I'm thinking.
well, let's have a look. So England versus New Zealand 2 points, England versus Australia 5 points, England versus South Africa 9 points. I don't know how we go. Let me see if I can
They
find it
did. They
quickly
toured
before that.
us, and they lost by what 7, I think, in the second game, or 5 in the second game. And
Uh, England versus New Zealand in July was 24-7 and 16-15,
okay, so
and
yeah,
just before that they beat Japan.
so that other than that one game where we 24-7 was it?
Yeah,
They
and even
it,
if you look at the games before that, in the Six Nations, they lost to France by 2 points. They beat Ireland by a point. They lost to Scotland by 9 points. And then we're going back to the Rugby World Cup.
yeah,
At pretty much before they lose again, and even then the loss in the semi final to South Africa in the World Cup was 1 point.
1 point, yeah,
So you got to that's got to be awful, And you really feel for Borthwick and the English team. Like they as you're saying, they're in these games. They're so close. Like a couple little moments here and there, and we could be talking about this incredible England team that's put up great results. I mean, they lost to South Africa by a point. They beat Argentina by 3, and they had a decent run in the Six Nations. A couple, 2 losses, and again both of those narrow margins. And these last 5 losses all again by narrow margins. It's
mm,
just you've got you know it's got to be like they just got to feel like there's just one piece just out of place and trying to figure out what that missing piece is that's just out of place before they can, again be a dominant world rugby side. Yeah, it's got to be so frustrating as an England fan.
yeah, yeah. It must be, must suck.
Mm,
Unlucky to them. Um, On to the French versus the All Blacks. All right, now let's
yeah.
talk about this game because talk about. I think I'm going to read you some statistics from this game because it just doesn't make any sense to me how we've lost
Mm,
this game. So obviously France won 30-29. Possession set 61-39 in favour of the All Blacks. Territory 55-45. So on their front foot, but carries 188 to the All Blacks, 96 to the French. Meters gained, we double them again, 656 to 370. Line breaks 8-4. Defenders beat them 34-12. Offloads 13-4. Yes, we were slightly up on handling errors, but you're going to have that when you have more of the ball. So I go, okay, well, how did we must have missed a shitload of tackles? No, defenders tackles made 111 to 208. Tackles missed 12 to 34. So tackles percentage for us 90, for them 86. Okay, we must have given away 20 plus penalties. No, 13 penalties to them, 9 penalties to us. So I'm like, where the fuck did we lose this game? The more and more I look at
mm.
it, the more and more I go, there's nothing here to say we should have lost. Like lineouts, we only lost 1, they lost 3. We stole 1, they get 2. We kicked all our goals. You just sit there and you go, this is one of those ones I'm never going to understand now looking back
Well,
how we lost.
when I've watched the condensed game, I felt like the entire time I was watching it, it was just New Zealand ball in hand. Like you just rattle off those possession statistics, right? Uh, but just France always just seemed to be racking up points somehow. My question to you is, right, towards the end of the game, you and France were basically just trading penalty kicks. Given your percentage, given those stats you just read off, defenders meters gained. Do you think taking those penalties was a mistake and not going for points, not going for tries at any of those stages?
Uh, well, hindsight's great. Now that we lost the game, of course, I think it's a mistake. No, I don't, because I think if you look back to last week against what we did to Ireland, I think you go, as long as we're in the game, there's a chance to win it. I bet this All Blacks team to win it, so I
Mm,
wouldn't say it was a mistake. I think they'll do their due diligence in going, what could we have done differently, and is it at one point we do go, okay, we draw a line in the
yeah.
sand and we go, we're going to be ruthless and score a try here.
Bec-
Um,
the reason I ask, and is because what we saw in Wales versus Australia is that at a couple of times when Australia normally would have gone into their shell and just kicked penalties, they instead chose to go for mauls and lineouts. And it's not something we're particularly known for, but I think Schmidt did a really good job of empowering his players, and the players did a good job of reading the game and making those decisions and realizing there was. We'll talk about that game more next, but that they had that momentum. They were winning those collisions, those set pieces. I feel like that was like a bad read of the game from somewhere in the All Blacks setup. Like I agree with what you're saying. As long as you're in the game, New Zealand is in the game. New Zealand has a chance to win it. But at that stage, you're putting in all of this effort, so much work, and you're coming away with just 3 points. Um, in a couple of stages, like I was seeing some really great carries, and you guys are known for your set piece plays and things like that as well. Like just in
mm,
my mind, I would have thought that New Zealand might have taken an opportunity there, particularly when you just kept ticking like this. The first one I can understand, but the second penalty try after you were just ping ponging back and forth with France. Surely there's got to be someone that just thinks we need to disrupt the flow of this game, because the flow of this game, yes, we're making these meters, but France is bending, not breaking.
yeah.
Right? They're giving us these penalties, but it's not. We're not. So what? It's not enough for us to get a lead.
Yeah, and I agree to a point, and I think you've got to look at who you're playing as well. Wales
Yeah.
against France are probably different beasts in their own
Yeah.
rights.
Yeah. 100%.
Like I don't think Dupont. I read somewhere that Dupont, a team with Dupont in it in France, not including that World Cup game, haven't lost since March 21. So I know he
Yeah.
took the last year off. Off, I say off. Last year he was playing sevens slash this year.
Yeah.
But yeah, so a team with Dupont as a half starting in France haven't lost since like March 2021, except for
Mm.
that Rugby World Cup
And
quarter final.
I want to reinforce as well. What we've talked about the last couple of weeks is where we're criticizing the process, not the result, right? Because the result, obviously, as you said, hindsight, yeah, of course, you go for it. But what we were talking about then is looking at the thinking that led up to those decisions, and that's what I'm questioning, not the result of it, because you know you can always question it after the fact with the result, because it is what it is, and you could see obviously then what the outcome is going to be. But you're looking at it as if you're a person in the moment. Um, yeah, just for I definitely agree. Wales is a very very different team to France, but for that reason as well, I feel like you need to um,
Grab
you
the ball
can't
by the horns type thing. You got to take
exactly
it to
like
them.
you guys were yeah like you guys were making those meters. You had some great carries. From the parts I thought Cam Roigard had a great game,
Hmm.
which was really important for New Zealand. Artie Savia had a great game, of course, but yeah, I was surprised at that, because New Zealand usually is aggressive in that manner. I mean, the amount of times, and again, the Wallabies are a different team than France. The amount of times when against the Wallabies, you had opportunities to take penalty kicks, and yet maybe go ahead or be come up to within a 1 point or 2 point margin. Instead, you've gone for the sideline and gone for the maul. That's what I usually expect out of the All Blacks.
Yeah. And I would agree. I think this team's still finding its identity, and I'll give
Mm,
them I'll give them a pass mark for this game. I look at it again. I see. I don't know how we didn't win, but I
yeah,
think if I'm going to be critical, I go, how do you concede 30 points when you've done all that attacking? How do you concede 30 points when you've been the better team? Again, it's one of those questions we say if we can have less than 10 penalties defensively, we've just got to be good enough to do it. And we obviously weren't today. So, or today
and
over the
you
weekend.
were up pretty significantly at one point, right? Weren't you?
Uh,
Or
Early
maybe
in
I'm
the game, we
misremembering.
were up at
Yeah,
probably, but like halftime was 17-10, and I think we were up
yeah,
17-7 at one point. So you like, yeah, again, and again, look, there's a couple of freak tries that kicked through for
mm,
that winger Billy Berry, who is just incredibly fast and made
yeah,
Sever Reese look like he was running in slow motion. But there's those moments that is going to happen in the games, and again, that came from a New Zealand mistake, a drop ball, and all of a sudden
yeah,
we're conceding a try. So I go, we had our moments. Again, it's another one of those. If you want to be the world's best, you're going to take those moments. So it's
yeah.
guttering. I
France
think.
France pulled the trigger a lot on some of the special plays like that French flair that they've been known for throughout their history, and even more so recently with Dupont and Ramos and all of them. So
Yeah,
I think
and
they rolled the dice more.
I go, I agree. I go Cam Roigard. I think again has shown why he's got to be the All Black starter. He at 9. I think if anyone's going to go up against Dupont, it's him. I do. I think we're
Mm,
missing as much as I can see Cortez is a very good player. I think if you bring on TJ Perinara or someone in that situation, do we have a different result at the end there as well, just with a bit more
mm,
experience? A lot of questions come from this game, but a lot of good thought-provoking questions rather than hey, the last time we played France in France and got beaten by like 40-25, and you were just like, what the F is going on? Now I can go, hey, I know what the F is going on. We just need to find ways to win those games. But yeah, tough to beat
mm,
France in France with Dupont, as I welcome anyone to do it, and only the Springboks seem to know how at the moment. Last
yeah,
game of the round, though, was your boys. Now, let's just sit here and take a moment because not only have they delivered what I said, which I think you were going to fuck some motherfuckers up, and unfortunately it was the Welsh, but you did it with a lot of adversity as well. Like, this is the
yes.
most unwallabies thing I've ever seen in my
I
whole
want to.
entire life.
There's one. The first thing I want to highlight, and I'm glad you led with that because this is what I was going to lead with as well. The Wallabies were up 19-0, and then after a card and coming into what's halftime, it was 19-13. Now, we only need to go back a couple months to the Rugby Championship to when the Wallabies got out to a lead against Argentina and then ended up having one of their worst defeats in history against Argentina. We can see the growth in Schmidt's Wallabies with even in the same calendar year, right? You take that Wallabies team from that first series of tests against Wales and Georgia, and you compare it to now. It's totally different. It's totally different. Yes, Wallabies teams of the past would have crumbled under this pressure, but Schmidt has done an excellent job of changing just the even just the culture within the team of developing that New Zealand style belief of we're going to win this game. We can come back from this. We can hold on. We can move forward. Um, but obviously some controversy in the game as well with the Karevi card. Some people didn't even think it was yellow, and yet it was given. It was upgraded to a red. Now the yellow card, I could see it's head to head contact. That's pretty much always going to result in a card, right? I don't know if I necessarily agree with the red because I did think there was some mitigating circumstances in that both players sort of dipped in there. He was attempting to make a tackle. I don't think it was reckless or anything like that. So, but that's a whole other kettle of fish. We did see the 20-minute red card rule come into play. Not that the Wallabies seemingly needed it because they scored during that time that Kirby was off the field anyway. Um, but leading into this game as well, there was question marks again. It seems every week that Joe Schmidt coaches, there's question marks about his decisions. Right? This week it was a question mark. Last week it was a question about putting Swali in the starting squad. This week is why did you leave him out? I think at this point we just need to just shut up and let him do his thing. He knows what he's doing. Clearly he knows what he's doing. Right? Um, the Karevi and Ikitau center pairing was great. And look, again, I just think that and I hate to harp on about it, but I just don't think Paisami is a right fit for the Wallabies. What the Wallabies want to do in the center position, right? I think he's a good backup piece to have. He's a quality player, but the creativity we saw out of Karevi and Ikitau, you could tell that Wallabies team has been practicing flick passes all week because all of them were flicking balls this way and that to set up tries. Jorgensen was doing it. Karevi was doing it. Um, the creativity you have with, like, it seems Ikitau has been sort of let off his leash a bit, and you saw the creativity coming out of the centers that really opened up the Wallabies attack. What we saw from Paisami was not as much creativity; it was a lot more straight, go ahead, solid tackling, but not really that much in attack. Um, so I really liked seeing that out of the Wallabies. I like seeing a set piece actually work for us for once. Getting a maul and getting it in there for a try. Matty Fessler, Tom Wright, both hat tricks. That's incredible to hear. Callaway had a good game. Nick White didn't have a terrible game. He did not have a terrible game. He didn't have the best game, but he didn't have a terrible game. Noah was, I think, improving. Hard to tell how much it was him and how much of it was his centers. But the fact that he's linking up with him and taking these chances is tremendous to see. Yeah, look, again, this is a Welsh team that's in a historic low, but this is a Wallabies team that in the past would have dipped to their level. I mean, it was 12 months ago that we got the brakes beaten off us by this Welsh squad. Yes, they're missing some of those players, but you know, it's still the same coach in there. And what I have seen from the Wallabies, particularly these last two games, that I'm very, very happy about is the improvement around the ruck. Now, both Union and League, the games won at the breakdown at the ruck. What I've loved from the Wallabies is not only the support at the ruck, but the players getting tackled, putting so much effort into, going into that long shape, getting the ball back, putting it in a position for their team where only the Wallabies can get to it. Because how many times in the past have we seen the Wallabies give up the ball at the ruck, lose possession, or give up a penalty at the ruck? And I think that's a huge thing. It's been highlighted by commentators and analysts a bit, but I think probably not as much as it deserves because that is such a huge change from what we've seen from the Wallabies in the past, and that for me has been the biggest point of improvement. Has been their rucking work.
Yeah, look, to me it was a fantastic game, and as you said, I think you can make the argument it's probably a red card with Career One. I think you can make the argument it could have stayed at yellow, but again, as I said, you're in that stage there. It's 19-13, and you go, oh shit, here come those Wallabies. Here come those Wallabies of old who are going to pack up and they're going to get beaten and they're going to drop their heads. And for it to end up 52-20, and you just go, what the fuck? Like, with a red card, 20 minutes of a man down in that second half, and to deliver that performance, I just went, look, maybe guard is changing. Maybe it is time for us to have a bit of belief in this Wallabies. And especially, as you said, look, Welsh are in a world of hurt at the moment. That has to be another knock on their heads. Like, again, you're looking a year ago, they won by 33 points. Now, previously this past summer, for them, the winter series, then they came over to you guys. They look competitive. Now they look like a team who has no identity, no direction, and deservedly seems to be dropping down the world rankings because they are just not good enough at the moment at an international level.
I want to I'm going to want to read through some other results from the week. But before I do that, I just want to highlight that the Wallabies have put on 94 points in the past 2 weeks. That's pretty incredible from a team that was really directionless in the Rugby Championship at times. But reading through some other results over the week, Italy and Georgia was also played early this morning. 3-point win for Italy. I think probably a necessary one given some of their recent struggles and talks about being replaced in the Six Nations and Georgia's ascendancy. But also, I think Georgia will be pretty happy to be playing in Italy and only losing by 3 points. But again, maybe it's time we start holding Georgia to that same sort of standard that we're holding Argentina to. And like, if they want to be in the Six Nations, they need to be beating the Six Nations teams.
I will, and I will just piggyback on that. They were up 17-6 at halftime, Georgia. So they actually blew their opportunity.
So they'll probably be disappointed then. Looking at some other results, Japan beat Uruguay. Fiji beat Spain not by a huge amount, 33-19. Fiji against Spain, and when you consider that Fiji beat Wales earlier in the week, I think the Spanish will be, uh, you know, to only lose to Fiji by 14 points. This is a team that got into the finals of the Rugby World Cup. It's a great result for the Spanish. Romania beat Canada 35-27. Now another upset for Tonga. USA beat Tonga 36-17 as well. That's great for American rugby, and it's obviously a market that we want rugby to thrive in. So some other great results over the week, and then Scotland smashed Portugal as we all sort of expected. Um, and the Wallabies XV lost to the England A team, and the All Blacks XV a week ago, so sort of last week's game, beat Georgia.
Yeah. And shout out to the Dutch who beat fucking Chile 2017. Former player in the Netherlands. That's a big result for them. They don't normally take scalps like Chile.
That's not showing up for me.
Team.
World Rugby's own website's not showing that. Terrible.
Well, let's move into.
I know rugby's very popular in the Netherlands. I hear.
Yeah, it's going to get really bigger as well. Yeah. So.
Well, and you think about it, the Dutch is the tallest race in the world, like like per capita. I should say not tallest race, tallest country in the world per capita. You get some standing locks out of Argentina, I reckon. Out of Netherlands. Sorry,
Netherlands. Yes, and where did all those big surfers come from? Where do you think? Got to come from somewhere. There they came.
Yeah, look, those Dutch are descended from the Scandinavians, the Vikings. So it's again no surprise really that the South Africans they're essentially modern day Vikings, the Afrikaners down there in South Africa. But once we get the Netherlands into rugby, then we can get the Scandinavian countries into rugby, and that's what we need. That's the expansion. We're expanding north in rugby.
Yeah, love it. Moving on to the predictions for this week, I've kind of outlined 6 games that seem they're going to be spicy matchups. So we're going to start with France versus Argentina and our thoughts on that one. I'm going to start just because purely I think there's something I feel coming in the air, and it's an Argentina are like, we want a famous scalp on this tour. This would be huge, and I say this would be huge if DuPont's playing and they win. It's probably one of the biggest wins in Argentina history, in my opinion. If DuPont's not playing, I think Argentina win it no matter what. Then, but I think DuPont will play. I think it's going to be closer than again a lot of people think. I think if France have had that again, it's a heavy matchup to play against the All Blacks. They've just made 200 plus tackles. They've been playing this high quality team, up tempo team. Argentina come off the back, they will be disappointed about them not making a statement win over Ireland. They want to win. I see it being really close. If DuPont's not playing, Argentina wins. If DuPont's playing, France just wins.
Yeah. I tend to agree with you there. I think DuPont is that good enough of a player that he is a difference maker. It's going to be tough. I see this as similar to South Africa and England last week. I think France win, but I think it's deadly close. Again, also similar to France, New Zealand. Argentina will feel like they probably should have won that game against Ireland. And maybe they come into this one, as you said, feeling spicy, feeling like this is they need something to come away feeling like a success on this tour. But I'm gonna stick with France. I mean, what did you quote as well, that France haven't lost in France with DuPont playing, except for the Rugby World Cup since like 2021, something like that. Like, I do like your win condition that if DuPont plays, then France will win. I'm not gonna put any conditions on mine. I'm just gonna say I think France wins.
Yeah, nice. Ireland versus Fiji next, which I think will be really interesting. Ireland, kind of off the back of 2 average performances. I thought they were going to put at least a decent performance against Argentina, but they narrowly won. It'll be really interesting just because Fiji are quite an open team, as everyone knows. The Fijians love to throw the ball around. They love to play unstructured. Look, they're now 2-1 on this tour. They've won 2, lost 1. Bad loss to Scotland, but beating Wales and Spain. Like, how does all this match up? We don't really know. I think Ireland have to go in as heavy favourites still. I go, could Fiji upset them and shock the world? Yes, they could. If Fiji come up, if they turn up, if they're ready to go, if they play really good footy, they could have beat Ireland. I don't doubt that could happen. That's where we're at World Rugby in the moment. I don't think it happens. I think Ireland finally get their act together and win by a comfortable margin, 2 free tries.
Yeah, I think Ireland win this as well. I don't know if I'd say necessarily hugely comfortably. I think that Fiji, I think, also still have a lot to prove from the World Cup. That the World Cup wasn't a fluke. Um, that being said, Fiji is capable also of self-inflicted wounds, like we saw against Scotland. Um, yeah, I mean, my pick is Ireland in this one. I just it's a roll of the dice. I don't know if it's a blowout or not, but yeah, I'm sticking with Ireland.
Wales versus South Africa. I think we can safely mark this up as a South African win. I'm going to be really interested with the squad Razzie picks because
Mm,
people may think it's disrespectful, but Razzie's going to play some probably debutants and some lesser caps, and it's not disrespectful in my opinion because Wales suck, and
mm,
they've put themselves in this hole currently that they're in, where teams can, like South Africa, can play some new players to get them experience because you don't want to be doing it against England, you don't want to be doing it against Scotland, you want to be doing it against
yeah,
Wales. So I sit there and I go, they've dug their own kind of hole.
yeah,
Now they have to live in it. And I think South Africa, I think Razzie's going to go, we can pick a few new players here because we can still beat Wales by a hefty margin while playing
yeah.
this team.
You need to
Now,
blood players at some point.
now that could backfire. There's no doubt about it.
Mm,
That this Welsh team, as much as they are below par at the moment, if they get a performance together, there's still a lot of heart in the Welshmen. Like there's no doubt that
oh yeah.
Welsh are still one of the hardier people in this world, and they do not go down without a fight. Although they've been
Hmm.
beaten, they've put up fights at every point. Yes, they may have ended up folding, but I go, can Wales stick in the fight long enough against the young South African team? If South Africa choose one of their better lineups or a very strong lineup, I think we could see 60 points being cracked here by South Africa.
Yeah. I think no matter what, it's a South African win. Um, I mean, you said it all there. I really don't have anything to add. Yeah, I think South Africa win this comfortably. I actually I think even if they pick a less experienced squad, I think they will still win pretty comfortably. Wales will keep fighting to the end, but I don't think it'll be super competitive.
Yeah, look, let's move on to another game that I don't think is going to be super competitive. Italy versus the All Blacks. Now,
Mm,
Italy obviously started off this year with a hiss and a roar. They lost to England by 3 points in the Six Nations, got well beaten by
mm,
Ireland, but that was happening. Drew with France in France, beat Scotland in Italy, and then beat Wales in Wales in the Six Nations. They then went on a historic losing run in the
mm,
Summer Series or Mid-Year Series. They lost to Samoa, beat Tonga, which everyone's doing, beat Japan, which everyone's doing. They then lost to Argentina when they kicked off the Autumn Nation Series and only just beat Georgia. So I go, take that form at the start of the year, I would have been like, oh, this is going to be a nice quality game. I go, what I've seen with them over the mid year and toward the end of this year, what Argentina just did to them, what they struggled against Georgia for, you know, until like the 60th minute. I think the All
mm,
Blacks are going to beat them and beat them quite comfortably. It'll be interesting again. This is going to be one of those ones. What team gets selected? Do we blood a few new players? We saw Peter Larkai debut for the All Blacks earlier against France due to an injury. I go, what team do we put out there? I'm really excited to see, but I think we run away
mm.
with it. I think it's about a 10 to 50 point game.
You say a 10 to 15 point game?
50,
Oh,
5-0.
50. Okay, yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, that's a. I was like, you're being very conservative there. Yeah, no, Italy are in a sour patch right now, and not the good kind, like Sour Patch Kids, like a bad spot of rugby. Um, yeah, similar to Wales, South Africa, I don't see this one being hugely competitive. Um, yeah, New Zealand should win pretty comfortably in this one. I would say I would go even further than you. I'd say a 20 to 60 point win. I mean, didn't you guys wipe the floor with them in the World Cup
We
recently?
did.
Like 90 point win?
Yeah, 96 something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, wouldn't mind seeing that again. That was one of the better days of the Rugby World Cup for me. The game of the round. There's not hide from it. Here's your first challenge to stop this Grand Slam. It's Scotland versus
First
Australia.
challenge.
Yeah.
First challenge. I think England was the first
Nah,
challenge.
mate, you wiped the floor with them. What are you talking about? You put 40 points on them. England aren't even a
That's
challenge.
true.
England can't win a game. Let's not even lie about it. England can't win a game. They suck. Wales suck. Now you've got your first challenge. Scotland kind of suck because South Africa wiped the floor with them. How do you see this one going, my friend?
Slugfest. Absolute slugfest. I mean, what I said for Scotland against South Africa last week. Scotland are tough, gritty, as you have to be to live in Scotland, which is tough and gritty. And yeah, I don't know if Australia will get the same space against Scotland that they got against England and Wales. And the last couple of matchups against Scotland have all been very tight affairs. That being said, this is a different Wallabies team now. It's a different Wallabies team now. We're going into this mentally healthy, confident, calm, moisturized, thriving, staying in their own lane. So I think the Wallabies win this one. I think the Wallabies go into Dower, Scotland, and light it up with a bit of gold and a bit of magic. And they beat the Scots, and the Grand Slam dream stays alive.
Yeah, look, let's not lie. Scotland have played Fiji and Portugal on this tour, where they've won 57-17 against Fiji and 59-21 against Portugal. They then played their hardest game, which was South Africa versus Scotland, 32-15 to the Saffers. I look at that and I go, they can obviously score points against the average teams, but they obviously concede against the average teams as well. So I see there's at least 30 points on the table for the Wallabies. I'm sorry, but did you just say that you're averaging like over 45 points a game currently?
Did, yeah.
So I see a 40-point Wallabies outfit turning up and scoring 40 plus points. I also see Scotland scoring points. Wallabies aren't necessarily allergic to conceding tries. So I go, look, I think it could be a very English-like game as well, where, it's going to come down to those last plays. It's going to be high scoring. We're going to see two teams in 30 points. And it's just going to be who takes the most of their chances, because I think there's going to be plenty of opportunities there for both teams. Can the Wallabies do it? Yes, they can. They've shown this tour that they can. They've shown this year that they don't roll over easy. Will they do it is a whole nother question. I think this could be a career-defining Wallabies moment for a lot of these players, because not only, as we said, does this keep the Grand Slam hope alive, but it sets up probably the juiciest matchup of this tour next week, which is the only international game, I believe, that is on next week, which is the unofficial final week of this All-Nation Series. But it's the Irish against the Wallabies for a Grand Slam. And let's not lie, I think the Irish will be up for that. I think if the Wallabies are there, they'll be up for it. It could be a historic matchup for the Schmidt era as well. You're thinking the former Irish coach, now Wallabies coach. Like the storylines that could come out of that all come down to this game. So you've got to take it one step at a time.
The last coach who coached the Wallabies to a Grand Slam just got arrested as well.
Exactly.
It's all lining up. This is the year. The stars are aligning for this to happen.
Yep. So I think Aussie do it. I think Aussie just get there, having a high-scoring, quality game. Tune in if you get the opportunity. Aussie to beat Scotland. Last game of the round, I think the English are finally going to get a win, because Eddie Jones brings his sad sack of Japanese boys into England. Now, I just want to mention, you said they beat Uruguay, which they did, but there was a stage there, I believe, they were down 2018. If I bring up the scoreline, it was 2018 after 45 minutes. So they ran away with it in the last 30 against Uruguay, including a red card to themselves. But they were not in control of another game, this Japanese team. And when we look at what they've done recently, it's not a lot of good. Just looking at some of their results. So I think England finally
I was
together
just looking at some of the recent Japanese results, right? So let's go from, let's just take 2024, right? Historic loss to England in June, 52-17. And that was in Japan, I believe. Lost to Georgia by 2 points. Smashed by Italy, 42-14. beat Canada but still conceded 28 points, beat USA, beat Samoa. Good results there. Lost to Fiji. Smashed by Fiji. Smashed by New Zealand. Smashed by France. And escaped with a win against Uruguay. Everything, England, this is your time. Now ends the winter of your discontent. This, um, this is the dawning of your glorious son of York. Here, I don't think the game's been played in York, but this is England get their win. England get their win here. Look, there's no other possible motivation that could be put into this game for England. They lost 3 games in a row. They're playing at home in front of their fans. They're playing against Eddie Jones, the coach who they sacked and who ridiculed them and who spoke all this crap about them after he left, put them through all sorts of weird hell, telling someone they're going to get a steak and then giving them a sausage. All of this craziness. There's nothing else that could possibly, other than potentially the fate of the world. I don't think there's anything else that could motivate England more for this game, right? So this is an English win. This is an English win, and I think they work out some demons in this game. I think this is a big scoreline. I think this is a very big scoreline for England because they've got the attacking flair. They've got the pieces there. They've just fallen short against 3 quality opponents. Now they get a Minnow in their home stadium with vengeance on their mind and an easily identifiable figurehead to direct their anger towards.
Yeah.
I think this is a bloody English win. The
Yeah, I
red
can
on their
see that
roses
happening
will
too.
not be from thread. I'll tell you
Yeah.
that much.
Yeah, I can see that happening too. I think this is a week to see some good quality score lines come out of the rounds. But it's exciting again. It's exciting because again, World Rugby's in this
International rugby is
fantastic
just exciting.
it's in this fantastic position where we can
Oh,
say all this stuff, but we don't know
special. We should mention as well. Speaking of international rugby, new World Rugby chairman from
from
Australia.
Australia. I know,
Yeah,
impressive. Yeah,
yeah,
congratulations.
yeah.
Fortunes turn around. You're all of a sudden you're in
hmm
high positions of power. You got a team that can win. What is this?
Yeah.
Wallabies.
Well, and look, let's talk about this quickly as well to do with the Wallabies. I've never seen so much media coverage, people talking on social media, people watching the Wallabies games. There was a stat that came out that the game against England was the most watched event on Stan since the Rugby World Cup opening game or opening ceremony, right? And they were saying that people were watching it throughout the week on repeat, highlights, full game, mini game. Like people were this just shows you what the importance of having a Wallabies team that can win because that will elevate all of rugby. A rising tide lifts all ships,
Mhm.
and so hopefully that provides a boost to Super Rugby as well. Now, really, this is where Rugby Australia, World Rugby, and Super Rugby all need to come to the table together and work something out. If I was Super Rugby Pacific, I would be doing everything in my power to sow discord in relationship between South Africa and the Northern Hemisphere teams and trying to get South Africa back into Super Rugby. I think I forwarded you a clip during the week of I forget who the player is, but a former Springbok who was saying that he was talking about the Rico Ioane quote
Oh yeah,
that
Victor Matfield.
Victor Matfield, yeah,
Hmm.
a Super Rugby title is harder to win than Rugby World Cup, and he agreed with it. He said when Super Rugby was at its peak, South Africa, New Zealand, Australia in there, and even when Argentina was in there, with all the quality players in there, it's harder to win than a Rugby World Cup because you had so many quality teams all capable of taking each other down. Um, so yeah, if I was Super Rugby Pacific, if I was World Rugby, I'd be doing everything I can to get the South African teams back into Super Rugby Pacific. I also think it would be beneficial to South Africa, and the reason I say this, and you'll know more about this than me, but the seasons in England and France are incredibly long. Like it's almost non-stop. And that's one of the reasons why the French have said they're going to send essentially a B squad to New Zealand next year,
Hmm.
because their premiership seasons are so long. Whereas Super Rugby is a comparatively shorter time frame. you know, what 6 months? You know,
Of that, yeah.
yeah.
Start in
So
Feb, finish up in March. Start in Feb,
no,
finish up in August. Sorry. No.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So the players get more of a chance to heal. The international players get more of a time to work as an international unit. I mean, you have to then, if you're Northern Hemisphere rugby, you have to look at what South Africa and New Zealand are doing and wonder why they're able to win their World Cups, and these Northern Hemisphere teams never seem to get close.
Mm.
With the exception of England, really. But there's a reason South Africa. France and Ireland haven't won a Rugby World Cup. There's a reason Ireland haven't gotten past the quarterfinal stage. I think their players play too much. We've seen players now take sabbaticals. Owen Farrell, first one that comes to mind. So I think the South African players, I think their bodies would thank them for it, for having a shorter Premiership season, more time for recovery of the body, more time to be in that international system. So that's what I'd be doing about Super Rugby Pacific. Ride this wave of momentum that rugby is on currently, particularly in Australia and New Zealand,
Mm.
and yeah, make some big moves. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
you got to keep it up. But it's showing, what it is showing is that the tales of rugby's demise have been grossly exaggerated, or greatly
Yeah.
exaggerated. I think is the exact quote. There are fans coming out of the woodwork, right? Everyone loves a winner. In Australia, no one loves to be associated with a loser. People will be quiet when the team is losing. They will be embarrassed to show their support for a losing team or a team that's not very good. You know, you especially when it comes to rugby union. Rugby league, it's a little bit different. But when the team is good, the union fans are out and about. All right, and it shows that that you can be a rugby union fan, you can be a rugby league fan, you can be both. You and imagine the great things we could achieve if we worked closer together. So Peter Blandys, shut it, right? I've seen a lot of great league fans recently talking about enjoying watching the Wallabies play and watching the Wallabies win. Fantastic. Let's keep it going. Wallabies have to build off this momentum, but more importantly, Rugby Australia have to build off this momentum. And we're getting unprecedented levels of media coverage, and it probably couldn't come at a better time, considering that the broadcast deal for Super Rugby Pacific is currently being negotiated, and that's impacting player contracts and things like that. So, not to put more pressure on the Wallabies, but really the entire future of rugby in Australia is resting on the results of the next two games. Right? Like, like
But no
it
pressure.
sounds,
No pressure.
yeah, but no pressure. But I mean, you think about it, if the Wallabies could complete a historic 40-year Grand Slam, and it hasn't been done in 40 years. Think about what that could do for the broadcasting deals. Everyone is going to be into rugby union then. Wallabies jerseys will be going out the door like hotcakes, right? Nathan Cleary will sign with Rugby Australia, definitely. He wants a World Cup win, But I think it would legitimately be fantastic for rugby in Australia and for Super Rugby Pacific overall.
Totally. Couldn't agree more. All right, that'll do us this week. We will be back same time, same place next week to run you through all these games and to see if Aussie is still on track for a historic Grand Slam. Thank you for joining us. I've been Luke. That's been Husey. We'll see you later. Goodbye.
Peace.